You know, there are some vehicles you can spot from a mile away, and the Jeep, it's right at the top of that list. Whether it's climbing up a mountain or just parked at the grocery store, that face is absolutely unmistakable. It's a true icon.
But have you ever really stopped to think about where it all came from? You know, the name, that signature grille. The real story is so much weirder and more interesting than you'd probably guess. All right, let's get into it.
Because this isn't just your standard automotive history. No way. This is a story that weaves together a world war, a magical cartoon character of all things, and a brand that somehow managed to outlive almost every single company that ever owned it. So, to really get what the Jeep is all about, you've got to go way back to a world that was right on the brink of World War II. So, it's 1940. The US Army has this huge problem. They desperately need a vehicle that's light, super rugged, and can literally go anywhere. So they put out this urgent call, and after a pretty intense competition, the contract goes to a company called Willys Overland. What they created was the Willys MB, a tough-as-nails workhorse that would become an absolute legend on the battlefield. But here is our very first mystery. The Army called it the Willys MB. So where in the world did the name Jeep come from? Well, the truth is nobody is 100% sure, but oh man, there are 3 really great theories. Okay, so theory number 1, good old-fashioned military slang. We're talking stuff that dates all the way back to World War I, where Jeep was a nickname for new recruits or unproven gear. Theory 2 comes from, well, the Sunday funnies, believe it or not. And number 3, which you've probably heard, has to do with 2 little letters, G and P. So let's look a little closer at that cartoon theory, because it's pretty wild. This little guy is Eugene the Jeep. He showed up in the Popeye comic strip way back in 1936. And he wasn't just any pet. He was this magical creature that could walk through walls, teleport, and solve any problem. His whole deal was that he could go anywhere and do anything. Sound familiar? And when you think about it, the connection makes total sense. The soldiers fighting in World War II, they grew up reading Popeye. So when this brand new vehicle shows up and starts doing these incredible things, climbing insane hills, crossing rivers like it's nothing, you can see why they'd nickname it after a magical creature that could also go anywhere. So what about that GP theory? A lot of people are convinced GP stood for General Purpose, and soldiers just kind of slurred the letters together until it became Jeep. But here's the thing. The reality is a little more corporate. Ford also built these vehicles during the war, and they had their own internal code. G was for a government contract, and P was their designation for an 80-inch wheelbase reconnaissance car. It's pretty likely this just reinforced a nickname that was already catching on. So which one is it? Honestly, we'll probably never know for sure. It seems like the name Jeep wasn't from just one thing, but this perfect storm, a mix of old Army slang, a beloved cartoon, and a corporate code, all colliding to create a name that's now legendary. Okay, so we've tackled the name, now for the face. Let's talk about that famous grille, because it has its own mystery. All right, get ready for this, because it might just blow your mind. The original Jeep grille, it didn't have 7 slots. Nope. It had 9. And this design wasn't even from Willys. It was a contribution from Ford, who figured out a way to make a simple, stamped steel grille that was way cheaper and faster to produce for the war effort. Which leads to the big question, right? If the original had 9 slots, why is 7 the magic number for literally every single Jeep you see on the road today? Well, the very first prototypes had this really basic welded bar grille. It almost looked like something you'd find on a barbecue. That then became Ford's 9-slot design for the mass-produced Willys MB. But when the war was over and Willys started thinking about a civilian Jeep, the CJ2A, they made a crucial change and switched to the 7-slot design that we all recognize today. So why the change? Well, the reasons were a lot more practical than poetic. For starters, Ford actually patented their 9-slot design, and Willys wanted to avoid any legal trouble. But maybe even more important was that the new civilian models needed bigger headlights, 7 inches across, to be street legal, and those larger lights simply wouldn't fit in the narrow 9-slot layout. As for that popular story that the 7 slots represent the 7 continents, it's a really cool idea, but there's just no historical proof to back it up. And hey, just as a quick, amazing aside, how cool is this? During the war, they pushed the Jeep's Go Anywhere motto to the absolute extreme. Some were actually fitted with railway wheels so they could act like tiny locomotives, pulling supply carts along train tracks. They called it a Jeep train. All right, so the war ends. You'd think the Jeep's battles were over, right? Well, not exactly.
The fight for its survival just moved from the battlefield to the boardroom. And this kicks off a long and very complicated corporate journey.
I mean, just look at this list. It's like a game of corporate hot potato. The brand gets passed from Willys Overland to Kaiser Motors, then to American Motors, or AMC. That was a really key period. AMC created icons like the Cherokee. Then Chrysler bought AMC pretty much just to get their hands on the Jeep brand. And today, it's part of a huge company called Stellantis. It's a dizzying history.
But here's the truly wild part of this whole corporate saga. Through all of it, the sales, the mergers, the bankruptcies that took down other brands, the Jeep brand itself just kept getting stronger. The idea of the Jeep, what it stood for, was just too powerful to fail.
So when you take a step back and look at the whole picture, the birth and war, that crazy mystery behind the name, the iconic face, and this insane corporate journey, you realize you're looking at something way, way more than just a car.
I mean, its importance was understood right from the beginning. General George C. Marshall, we're talking about the U.S. Army Chief of Staff during World War II, he called the Jeep America's greatest contribution to modern warfare. That's how critical this little vehicle was.
So you can see how all these unique pieces came together to form its identity. The Jeep is truly the result of a perfect storm. A bit of old Army slang, a magical cartoon, a necessity of war, and an incredible story of survival.
And you can see that DNA carry through over the years. It started with that Willys MB Workhorse. Then came the CJ series that brought the Jeep to farms and ranches. That spirit lives on today in the modern Wrangler, which is a global symbol for adventure, and it's even been fused with a pickup truck to create the Gladiator.
And that's really the core of it, isn't it? The story of the Jeep isn't just about a car. It's about a bigger question. How does a simple machine, born out of pure necessity, absorb all these layers of history and myth and culture to become something more? To become a symbol that for millions of people truly represents the spirit of freedom and adventure.
Don't forget to like and subscribe for more How Meets History.